Hello, listeners. I hope everyone's doing well this week.
This is the penultimate episode of the show with me as the host. This week I'm going totally off-piste and we'll be talking about philosophy. So if you haven't ever wondered what the meaning is in life, what's right and what's wrong, or what's real, and enjoy living in complete ignorance and bliss, then tune out now. But if you do sometimes ponder the deeper things, stay tuned. As a perhaps recurring theme on the show during my tenure, I've talked about how to think about things we see online, in magazines, and so on. I have to tell you that the fitness industry doesn't exist to get you fit. It exists so that people can make money from telling you how to get fit. And these are two different propositions. Because there's a danger to anyone who has fitness as their full-time income, the scenario where I tell you how to do it and then don't need you anymore is quite terrifying. Because even in the most bourgeois of global locations like Mayfair, Malibu, and Manhattan, wondering also why all these places start with an M, well, a personal trainer will cost at the most $180 to $200, which sounds like a lot for an hour, but it's not enough time for you to come and do a session with me, learn how to do all this stuff, and then go off and do it on your own. That wouldn't give me enough income. Personal trainers need to put food on the table and pay rent, so they rely on ongoing business across the years. So weirdly, it's in their best interests to bamboozle you into thinking things are really complicated and that they need you to stick around. This is why I always like sharing facts, because you don't need fancy tests, complicated equipment, and workouts that are hundreds of exercises long. You just need someone to tell you the truth. That truth isn't telling you in 2010 that you should be on the paleo diet, 2015 that vegan's the way to go, in 2020 saying that dairy is the devil, and in 2025 to say that you should be drinking raw milk and eating raw beef. But therein we have a problem, because if you're not in possession of the knowledge of this stuff, how do you know what's true and what's not? What's real and what's fake? And I'm here to tell you that, well, it all might be fake. And this question has actually been troubling philosophers since at least the time of Plato. He had a famous thought experiment called the allegory of the cave, which asked just those kind of questions. Then in 1637, the French philosopher Descartes wrote, "I think, therefore I am," although he actually wrote, "Je pense, donc je suis." And this was in response to him asking a question about what he could really know about the world around him. It could be that as an evil demon, as he put it, was controlling his thoughts and making him think that the sky was blue and that he had hands, and so on. But there was one thing that he couldn't doubt, and that was that in ordering for his thoughts to be controlled, there had to be something that was having thoughts. So he concluded that if he was thinking, then he existed, even if nothing else did. Now, there are some problems with Descartes' argument. I would argue that we still don't know how consciousness works or where it arises. Some people believe in the existence of a soul, something that exists independently of the body. So it might be that a living individual is not a necessary component of thinking. Just because he was thinking doesn't follow that he does exist, or not at least in the way he was claiming. There are lots of different pushbacks on Descartes' argument, but what we can take from it is that it's fairly reasonable to say that the world around me is probably not as I think it is. Now enter this concept of idealism. So when I consider any object, that object or the things I consider about it are what we call its qualia, or its qualities. If we think of an apple, it has several qualities. The first, it has a quality of roundness. It might have a quality of greenness or redness. It has a quality of, it's not soft, right? It's hard. It smells and tastes appley. So my question to you would be, if I removed all of the qualities of an apple that you're using your senses to experience, then what is there of the apple that remains? And for most people, they'll think about this and come to the conclusion that the answer is, in fact, nothing. there is nothing about an apple that I can come to know without using my senses. Now, sense data is received from different sense organs, the eyes, the ears, the skin, and so on, in the brain, where it's processed and formed into our picture of the world. And this leads one to the position that if everything I know about the world is from my senses are processed in the brain, then there's nothing about the world that's external to my brain. Scary, right? And it was this idea that the world being different to what is being processed internally, and the idea from Descartes that these processes could be fed to us by a nefarious being with the sole purpose of deception, that contributed to the movie The Matrix. In the case of Descartes, just replace evil demon with machine, and you have the same argument. But the movie was not actually based on Descartes. It was based on a book by the French philosopher called Jean Baudrillard. This book was titled Simulacra and Simulation. It was written in 1981, and it was so important to the movie that it was a required reading for the cast and crew, and even appears as a philosophical Easter egg in one scene where Neo retrieves some computer disks from inside a hollowed out copy of this book. Another metaphor for things not being as they seem. It looks like a book, but is in fact a storage device. More deception. Baudrillard's ideas can be a little hard to wrap one's head around, but essentially he believed that the world that we live in is already totally detached from reality, and that real things have been replaced by signs, symbols, and signifiers that refer to or hint at the real thing, but are not the real thing itself. Considering he wrote about this over 3 decades before deepfakes and Instagram filters, he really was ahead of his time. Baudrillard believed that we're living in a world with 4 levels of simulacra. It's quite hard to explain, but I'll give it a shot with some examples. So in the first level of simulacra, let's take a pirate-themed historical reenactment. This is where things are not real, but are a faithful reflection of reality. The actors are dressed as real pirates and play the real role of historical pirates and buccaneers. In the second level of simulacra, we have a perversion of reality. It takes a real thing and distorts it. Let's say the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland. This was the ride that the movie series was based on. It portrays pirates, but in a distorted way. There's no indication of their bad side. It's all rum, gold coins, and galleons. And the third level of simulacra is where it's pretending to be reality. I would argue that Captain Hook from Peter Pan or Jack Sparrow from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie are more famous than Blackbeard or Captain Kidd, who were real pirates. So we have a situation where fantasy has replaced reality. Reality is either forgotten about or just ignored. And the fourth and final level of simulacra is a pure simulation. There's no resemblance to reality at all. Imagine a theme park opens and it designs a ride based on the movie Pirates of the Caribbean. We already know that this movie was itself based on a ride, and the ride was based on a perversion of reality. So this new ride would be a copy of a copy of a copy. In a real-world example, I was in a coffee shop a few weeks ago and sat reading a book whilst having a flat white. I watched a delivery arrive. Big white boxes full of pastries from a generic manufacturing plant. I then watched the store manager open the boxes and remove the pastries, which were all vacuum packed in plastic wrap. She then got out some very artisan-looking wooden boards, removed the pastries from the wrappers and placed them on the boards, dusted them with powdered sugar and put them in the window with handwritten signs. She's just doing what she's been told to do, but without thinking about this, she's created a simulacra of a coffee shop that bakes its own pastries. No sign or signifier was remaining that these pastries were not made in-house and were actually mass-produced cheap crap. Instead, she'd replaced those signs and symbols with those of individually handcrafted items. Seems to me this is a moral and ethical issue. Is it ethical to deliberately remove all traces of reality and replace them with signs of a different reality, one that bears no resemblance to the truth? I would argue that no one would want to live in a world where nothing tells the truth about what it is, because as Descartes reasoned in his first meditation, reason now leads me to think that I should hold back my assent from opinions which are not completely certain and indubitable, just as carefully as I do from those which are patently false. What do you think? Are you happy to be living in a world where everything can be doubted because we're all unwittingly creating a simulacrum, taking us further and further away from what is real? Or would you rather that this was stopped in its tracks? And how would we do that? Would we outlaw the creation of false realities? Spend all of our time taking up hyper-skeptical positions? I could go on about this stuff, but it is only a short podcast. If you do enjoy these thoughts, though, you can follow my philosophy YouTube channel. I started making some videos a couple of weeks ago, and it would be great if those of you that enjoy my yapping about philosophy over the last couple of years came and followed me there. I'm sure you know it's free to subscribe to a YouTube channel, and it would help me immensely if that could be something you would do to support me. My channel can be found by typing my name in the YouTube search bar, but Kevin with 3 N's. Someone already had my name. So Kevin Don, basically KEVINNNDON, all one word. It would be so awesome to connect with listeners there, because I'm certain that at this point many of you do come each week because we have a connection now, and I would love to continue that. Just a reminder though, I won't be making fitness videos, just philosophy, maybe some science. To those of you that have emailed in your own questions in the last couple of weeks, I'll do my best to reply to your emails or answer the questions in my last episode next week. I'd also like to remind everyone, whilst I am studying hard, I do pay for my studies with remote coaching clients. So if you have been looking for some guidance in your training, then please get in touch. I'd love to help you reach your goals, and it would be a great way to support me in my studies. Email getfitguy@quickanddirtytips.com in the next week. Get Fit Guy is a quick and dirty tips podcast thanks to the team Morgan Christensen, Holly Hutchins, and Brannon Getchis, the director of podcasts. I'm Kevin Dunn. If you have a question, you can email me again, getfitguy@quickanddirtytips.com. For more information about the show, visit quickanddirtytips.com or check out the show notes in the podcast app.